go, 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 let's go. Cash on me, like I hit the lottery. Trip, watch on how they follow me. Wait, honey's blue, yeah, I got them all on me. Go, 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 let's go. Prada shoe, yeah, I keep a style on me. Pretty freaks, make them big pile on me. I swear, red party, I got 30 thou on me right now. Go, 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 let's go. To my cake.
I can't even react because I cough so much. Holy crap. Should I flex? I think I should flex actually. A different yo-yo this time. Alright. I think I'm gonna end it up now. Oh my god, 2 minutes of storage left on my phone.